All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Inbox Academy. We are talking today about white labeling, and we thought we would do this a little bit differently than usual because actually, Rebecca has a lot of experience white labeling with marketing agencies and things like that. And I have a lot less experience in that realm. So I'm going to be kind of interviewing Rebecca with a lot of the questions that we hear you guys asking. And we're really going to dig into the nitty gritty of, what it is, why it's powerful, whether you might want to pursue this route or not. So, to get us started, Rebecca, can you explain to us, for people who are a little bit newer to this realm, how would you explain what white labeling actually is?
Yeah, so I would say the easiest way to explain it is you are doing work under someone else's brand name or their business, right? So instead of working with the client directly as Rebecca, email strategist, right? I might be brought in by an agency or another copywriter to do the strategy, the writing, the back end, but it's all delivered under their brand name. So Rebecca, email strategist, Rebecca Christine agency, whatever, that doesn't, there's no place for that there. So it's their client. They typically have found this client, and I'm just coming in and supporting them on the email side of things. So I'm kind of behind the scenes for specific projects. I can be invisible to the client, and for some other projects, I am working with the client, but I am representing myself as part of that brand's team.
Awesome. And how did your first white label opportunity come about?
Yeah, I've done a few different white label projects. Some have been like some one-off stuff with a few individual people, but then now I regularly white label for two agencies. And my first opportunity came through a client referral. So a client I was already working with introduced me to an agency owner that they really trusted, and
What type
basically
of agency?
what was
Was
that?
that what type of agency?
Oh, so it was a marketing agency. So, yeah, they were good friends, I guess. I had done some copywriting and email projects for this specific client of mine, and she was like, "Oh, I have this friend that really needs what you do. Like, I love what you've done. These results are amazing, and he needs this. Like, he has an agency. He gets people coming in to him for like all these SEO projects, and he does like." And she said, he's been, talking to me about how a lot of them are coming like saying, "Do you do anything with email too? Can we add, a couple thousand or whatever, 5,000 to this project? And like you include some email work for us. We need some stuff set up." And within like a couple days, he had scheduled a meeting with me on my Calendly link, and we had a call. And literally the next week, I was onboarded to his agency. So that was my very first one, and then the other agency that I currently white label for came about in a completely different way. I was actually competing. There was like this Dolby.io competition, and for some reason, was just like, I don't know, I just kind of want to feel a challenge right here. So I just like wrote up this ad for Dolby for like these headphones, and just kind of like had fun with the copy and made it really like personality driven. And it was a pool of like thousands and thousands of people. And then it ended up, we got an email that it was like narrowed down to like 10 and then 5 and then 2. And I was in the final two. And then, yeah, and it was super
That's
fun.
so
And
cool.
yeah, I loved it. But I didn't end up getting it. The other person ended up getting this, like, basically winning. And then they got the opportunity to actually write for the company. And I was like, like it was just fun for me. It would have been cool, but I love the challenge. Well, someone that was on the review team, she reached out privately and was like, "The personality in your copy," she said, "is like, I just love it." And she was like, "I have a female friend that runs this female owned business, and this is the voice she's been talking to me about needing in her company. Can I give her your information?" And I was like, "Sure." And I really didn't think it'd go anywhere. And sure enough, scheduled a call, and the next week I was writing for her. So, yeah,
I
that's
feel
how.
like this just goes to show so much. Like, if you deliver quality work and just actually
Yes.
pour the quality in, like it'll all come back to you.
Well, and here's the biggest lesson I learned from that is to not be so shy that you don't let your work be seen, right?
Yeah.
Like, I just like went for something that looked silly. like to someone else, it didn't make sense for an email marketer to be like doing this Dolby thing. And, but I put my work out there in front of all of these people in a big company. And I gave people the chance to see what I could do. Put it out there, like just put it out there and let the world like kind of reinforce what you're doing. So, yeah.
So, what did your role kind of look like initially behind the scenes with those early projects?
So it varied a little bit with the woman. It was more like she didn't have an agency. She had a brand, a company, very like high fashion, but she also was the marketing lady of another company. Other people in the fashion industry would come to her and she would help them with strategy and copy and stuff like that. And that's where she pulled me in. So she kind of had her own business as well. And then this side business of like helping other female business owners. And so in that circumstance, that was just like I was silent. I was really pretty much just like backing her up. So she would say yes to projects and like helping this company, write up their story brand and set up their automations. And I would just go in and do it all and tell her when I was done. And she was very transparent that she had team members helping her. So I think maybe once or twice I ended up getting on a call with the client to explain for more complex projects. But again, I just represented myself as like part of her team. And then the other agency, the marketing agency that was run by Tyler. Tyler is an awesome guy. And how it looks with him is he would have clients come to him, and these are big, big, big companies, right? These aren't really individual. They're like big, like webinar and software and in SaaS and all this, like just big companies come to him and be like, I need you to optimize our content, get everything cleaned up, get us ranking, all of that. And then in those conversations that he would have with clients, if there was any indication that they needed email in any way, he would say, oh, we have an email strategist on our team. Is that something you'd be interested in? And if they say yes, that they want to include it in their big bulk project with him, which sometimes was like a retainer for a year, 6 months, maybe just a one off project, that's when he would reach out to me privately and just be like, hey, I've got this client. We had a meeting. Owner seems great. They're interested in this. Can you jump on the next call with us? And so I would get on the next call, again, represent myself as part of the team. I'd ask questions. What's working? What's not working? What are you looking to get done? How can I support you the best way with this? And then I just tried to have all that information. And then I'd get off the call and I'd get to work. I'd give the owner, like, okay, these are my timelines. This is when I can get it done. And he would be in complete communication with the client. I would kind of have that call, but the rest of the communication was with him. And then I'd execute the work. And sometimes there'd be a call at the end of the project. I would jump on and walk through everything and ask if there's any other way I can support them. And sometimes he wrapped up the project, the business owner, the agency owner that I worked with. So that's kind of what it looked like.
Yeah, so it sounds like your direct contact with the client was fairly limited in
Yeah,
most of this, but you did get on individual calls on occasion and things like
I
that to get
did.
started.
And sometimes the agency owner would be on with me, but there were times that as our relationship built trust over time after, I've
Mhm.
been working with him for, I want to say almost 3.5 years. So after like that first year when he really could see my style, the way I held myself, the way I represented him, he started to really trust me there. So then like if an opportunity came, and he knew I wanted the work. So he'd be like, I can't get on this next follow up call. I had the initial call with them, but I'm going on vacation. Or my wife has just had a baby and I'm out for the next couple weeks. But if you're comfortable, you can get on the next call and then just relay back to me what you guys have agreed on and give me your pricing and then I'll take care of everything. So I've even had to go like just one on one, me with the client. And it's been nice to like, I don't know, like I love freelancing and I love like the independence, but it also feels good in these projects to kind of feel like you have a team as well.
Yeah.
And like not like a boss, but someone higher up that like trusts you and respects you and like wants you to lead things.
You kind of touched on this already, but I'm curious, and I know a lot of other people will be too. You already have like your own systems, such as like maybe an onboarding form or an onboarding call or research that you need from the client in order to do your work well, how did like your systems kind of meld in with the agency systems, or how much of that are you taking on, or is it really all them leading that?
The ones meeting with the agency owner are like CEOs. They're the ones like making the big financial decisions. They just kind of have to make sure they're at that first meeting and approve everything. So my job, this is how I view the white label, is my job is to get as much information from the agency as I can before I start asking for more from the client or the business, because I don't want to bug them. They're busy and this is supposed to be taking things off their plate, but I also want to execute my job well. So typically before I go into that kickoff call with the client, which I always have that kickoff call with this agency when I'm doing these big projects. With the other woman on the other side, I'm not really a part of those, but again, they're smaller projects. These projects with him are like, 50, 60, $70,000 projects. And sometimes that's once and sometimes that's recurring, right? So for them to throw in an extra 5 grand or 10 grand to get their email stuff is not a big deal for them when they're already like budgeting for these. So I don't want to bother them. Sometimes him and I will jump on a call alone and he'll give me all the info from that.
You mean the agency owner, right?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
The agency will jump on a call with me and be like, so I met with this client. This is what he told me. This is what he talked about when it comes to email. They already have like a brand story. I'm going to zip that to you right now. I basically ask him like, and everything and anything you already found out from this. What's the feel? Are they wanting like, and he'll give me all the details. And it really helps me already have like a really good solid foundation going into that call with the actual client. So any assets, like if they've already sent over photo, like I don't want to repeat those things. I don't want to say to the client on the call, yeah, so I need you to give me a bunch of like photo assets and your story brand guide and all this when they already sent it to technically like my team, right? So I just get on the same page and I honestly don't need much. When I get on those calls, the agency and the team has already collected pretty much everything they need to do their job, and like to do the email part is almost like the last piece or like an add-on with him. Not saying it's not important, but it's usually like a we include it if the client wants it. So they already have everything that I need to do my job well. So it's
So,
actually a simpler process, I feel like.
yeah, and I mean, it sounds like you have a pretty good agency that you're working with that is good
Yeah.
at collecting the right kinds of information and
Mhm.
things. So, kind of in that spirit, is there anything you wish you had known or done differently before you kind of got into your first white label agreement?
So kind of ties in with pricing. So I'm gonna touch on that before I answer your question because that made me
Yeah.
think of a little
Which
something.
I was kind of getting there already of, yeah, how do you think about pricing with white labeling? I
Yeah.
know people are
So
itching to learn about
yeah,
that.
so I'm gonna answer that question first, and then I'll get to what I think I could do different. You hear from so many people that when you white label, you need to do your work cheaper because they have to make a profit and all this stuff. Not the case at all. For any white label project I've done, I've given the rates of what I would charge anyone else. I've given like, they're the ones that have to figure out this is how much Rebecca needs me to pay her to join in on this project. So then I'm going to take this price and I'm going to add a couple thousand to it, or I'm going to round it up to, 10,000 instead of 8,000 or something, or seven, right? So the owner, the agency owner, the ones dealing with the finances and all that, they figure out how to make a profit on my work. Sometimes they're making such a big profit off the project that they actually don't even add like I've had a few projects where he doesn't even add to their quote to include the email. He just has me do it and pays me. And it's just kind of like out of their budget because they know this specific client is going to be a long-term client. It's going to be worth over delivering in this project or whatever. But it never comes out of my pocket. So I am being paid. And so yeah, I just think like, if anything, I feel like not that it has more value, but who I white label for, it's like these higher end companies that are looking for quality work. Why would I not get paid for that properly? You know what I mean? Like, they're not looking for a deal either. They're looking for quality work. Both owners that I do white labeling for have been so respectful of my pricing. They have never tried to talk me down or say, well, could you do it for this instead or whatever. They're just like, send me your pricing for this project, tell me your timelines and when you can get it done, and we'll include it all in the contract and get you taken care of. So that would go into rolling into what would I wish I know, like what I can't even say the sentence.
What would you wish you had known before
Okay.
you started white labeling?
Yeah. Yeah, so I wish that I would have actually I went with the lower end of my pricing because I was kind of a newer copywriter at the time too, or email marketer. So I'd been copywriting for a little bit. I had made my move into email marketing. I had owned it. I felt good about it, but I was still intimidated a little bit. And so even though my pricing was solid and it was good pricing, I wasn't like hundreds of dollars or like just not getting paid what it was worth. It was still at the lower end of the spectrum. And I feel like if I could go back, I would have maybe started a little bit more at the higher end and been a little more confident in that, just because some of these projects ended up becoming really, really big projects. And I do think with white labeling, a lot of times the prices you give them, they kind of save that in the background as like your range is, and they budget a little bit for like, oh, if I have her come in for this project, we're probably thinking around this amount of money. And so I can't just like, throw something at them that feels out of left field, even if I felt like I deserved that income for this specific project. So maybe I wish I would have had a little more confidence in my pricing, but I'm still happy with how it went. Eventually, I did say, like, hey, my prices have gone up, my experience has gone up. I'm, doing higher and higher end projects. And just so you know, like, this is my range. And he even said to me, oh, I don't even look at that anymore. You just tell me every project what you want and we'll make it work. And I'm like, okay, that sounds
But
good.
it probably was great to approach that, like you said, outside of a specific project so that when he is throwing a quote out to an upcoming client, he does have that in the back of his
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah.
That he's already quoted the client and then you're raising your prices and cutting into his profits. That's always
Yeah.
something to keep in mind when you're in a situation like that. Yeah,
Yeah, so I
for
would
sure.
even say, like, if someone is considering white labeling and you're starting, like, you've on board with an agency or you're doing a test project, maybe even let them know that these are your starting prices. Like, just a simple sentence like that, like, these are my starting prices. This is what I could start off doing for you. But just, keep in mind that as projects progress and, like, different sizing of projects and things come the way, and there's different amounts of research with things, like, my prices absolutely do jump as, anybody that gives themselves a raise after years of work, right? You don't have to word it like that, but I would say that, like, just maybe saying something about like more of introductory prices, because you might go into the work with this person and you might find that, like with a white labeling agency, that it's way more work than what I'm saying. Like, there are people we know that have gone into it and like the owner wants like weekly meetings with them, and there's like just a lot of back and forth, and maybe the owner isn't as organized as I've been blessed to have. Maybe they're a smaller agency, marketing agency, and they're kind of all over the place and you're feeling very scrambled, and it's just like, whoa, like I feel like I'm on call with them, like an actual job. We've heard of people like experiencing that. So that might be where your prices be like, okay, this is what I did for the first project. This is what I'm realizing you need from me. This is going to be my pricing moving forward. So I think it just can make that conversation a little easier if you say it from the beginning. Like, these are my starting off prices. So,
Okay. So we've kind of covered like what this all is and what it looks like. What would you say are some of the greatest like pros and cons of white labeling in general if somebody's kind of considering getting into this type of arrangement or, pursuing this as part of their freelancing career?
Yeah, I love it. It's been a game changer of like my business and my confidence, right? Like to have people looking to you as an expert and then working for like some huge companies and loving the work and being thrilled and knowing like your emails are out there for like big airline companies and other things like that. It's just like, wow, that feels really good in this industry and as a freelancer. So I would say the pros are the opportunity to work on so many different kinds of projects for different kinds of companies, right? Because when you're white labeling for an agency, they're not going to be like, oh, Rebecca, your niche is holistic health and wellness. So we're only going to come to you with any companies that, like, I wouldn't have had any projects with them if that's the case. They're all like software development, airlines, customer service, like mental health software for employees at workplaces, like just so many webinar companies, like all this stuff. Like, I would have had none of those projects if they only came to me what was in my niche at the time, right? So, the opportunity to be challenged to write for different industries, B2B and SaaS and all of this different stuff. So, um, yeah. And then just meeting with SEOs and executive directors and just like handling myself and being proud of myself when I got off the call. The other obvious big pro, I think anybody would, this is why it would appeal like, oh, I would love to white label is you're not chasing the clients. They're the ones, and obviously the bigger company I work for, they don't even chase clients. They're showing up and they have clients applying and putting forms into them to have them work for them. You're not having to go after them. They're literally handing it to you on a silver platter and it's like, do you want this work? And you get to say yes or no. And then not having to deal with any paperwork, right? Like you don't have to do the contract, you don't have to, proposals, pricing, you don't have to go back and forth about pricing, you don't have to offboard them. Like there's nothing on you. All of that stuff is the agency's job to do. So I love that. Like those just projects feel so easy, you know?
Do you see any reasons that somebody should maybe not pursue this work or like a case where it would be maybe the cons of it?
I would say if you've never been in an ESP, you've never, like, if you're brand new, you have to understand you're representing this company. And so you want to have at least enough experience. And I'm not talking like you don't have to have years and years. I said several times that I was newer to like the email marketing world, but I had been like, that was the full email strategist kind of thing. But I had already been writing for a few years as a copywriter. I had already been playing in the back of clients' ESPs, doing tasks for them, until I realized I needed to be getting paid for that. And I felt confident. Like I felt like whatever project they came to me with, I could say, I've got this. And so just think of it like if you're in, the agency owner comes to you, says, we have this big client. They want some email work. I don't know what it is. Can you get on a call and like hear them out? And then let's come up with a plan to get off that call and say, I can't do that. I don't know how to do that. You can't do that. You have to be able to deliver for the agency. So that would be the one thing I would say to give yourself a little bit of experience before you start jumping into agency work. And then the other cons to that also is like, I don't know, like sometimes you aren't as in the loop as you would actually like to be. So, some of those conversations that you're a part of in client calls, you as like a strategist and a freelancer, you like pay attention to a little sentence they said or something they don't like, or they threw out this brand and they love that about it. And maybe that doesn't get relayed to you. I love those things on like my client calls. I'm like, oh, like they love this company and this and that. And it kind of helps me put the edge on my work. So that's hard sometimes to not get that, like be a part of from beginning to end, right? Of every
Yeah, like
conversation
you
with the
don't
client.
have your hands in it quite as
Yeah.
much. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm trying
Yeah.
to think. I feel like there's one more con that I thought of earlier in our.
One thing that stands out to me a little bit is that when you're doing that kind of work, like you said, there's so many pros. It's coming to you, it's landing in your lap, all that kind of stuff. But you're also not necessarily building your own brand
Yes.
and your own name in that sense. So somebody might know your name, but they don't know that you have your own
Mhm.
company. They don't know that they can refer other people directly to you. They're going to likely refer the marketing agency or something like that, but you're not necessarily building that referral network that you would have when it's truly your own name and brand on everything. And sometimes that means that you also can't collect testimonials or
Never. I've
proof.
never
Yeah.
done those, yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of people, I think that that really scares them away from agency work, and for good reason, but
Yeah.
also there are so many pros to it. So just finding that balance of, yeah, do you which matters to you more, or can you find a balance of doing both?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I thought of another con. It was like the fact that sometimes for these big projects, they would decide to stop working with the agency and but they still wanted email help. So like they've got
Mhm.
everything done, but they want like ongoing email help. And this agency doesn't do those, like their minimum contract is $25,000. You know what I mean?
Mm.
So if they're like, oh, could we continue for $10,000 or $8,000 for like her to keep writing strategy or nurture or whatever emails. And if they don't want anything else on the agency's service, platter, basically, they have to basically be like, yeah, you'll have to find an individual and I can't pitch them. I can't like be like, oh, under my agency, I can continue to work for you. I have to respectfully let them go. And I cannot on my own go after them. That would completely ruin our relationship with the
Yeah.
agency or my relationship with them. So,
A lot of times you've signed a contract, and that's something to
yes.
pay attention to if you're getting into a subcontracting or white labeling agreement. Pay attention to the contract that you sign because
Mhm.
there will be non-compete clauses and non like you can't steal a client out from under them and things like that. And I know in that kind of situation, it doesn't feel like you're stealing a client out from under them. You're saying like, no, they're walking away from you. And it's like, yeah, but if they might come back to that agency
Yeah,
if you don't take that. Yeah, it's a whole complicated arrangement,
it
and you
is.
really do have to be so respectful if you want that relationship to continue. You
Mhm.
do not want to be like a client poacher that is like, and you would like never get hired by an agency again if you get that reputation. So
No.
definitely respect those boundaries.
Yeah, and I would say, like, again, I feel so blessed by this specific company, this agency, because if he's already doing work with them and then they back down and only want to do a small email thing, which, to him is small, but to us, like, oh, an $8,000, $10,000 email retainer is significant, right? Like, that's the dream. So he has to kind of like move on if he's already doing work with them. But he's such a wonderful man that like if he has someone come to him and they only want email or they end up not wanting anything but email, he literally then refers them to me. Doesn't even act like I'm part of the team and like refers them to my company. And then he'll send them like my info and my contact info to my direct email, not the email that I use when I work with him, which is under his company name. So that's another thing is like the agencies that have emails that are like Rebecca at and it's their company domain email address. So I love that. Like who like he's just so
And I've had that happen too, actually, in a subcontracting situation where the potential client was not right for the person
Mhm.
who normally would hire me as a subcontractor. She went ahead and referred them to me directly. And so it
Yeah.
absolutely can turn into other work like that as well. And just definitely keep some respect in that relationship and,
Yeah,
follow your heart and your values when it comes to that kind of
absolutely.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. One last thing with that is the major pro is I've never had bigger retainers. I think
Yes.
my biggest retainer with him was $25,000 a month. And that was divided between two different clients. One was like 15 and one was 10. And because it was such a massive scale, huge company, it was for, I think it was almost a year for both of these clients that I did for him. And that was like on top of my other clients and stuff like that. They were like, this is what we want. This is what we'll pay you. And to like the agency owner. And he was like, done. You know what I mean? I was getting paid way more than you would think like you would ever get paid for, like 5 emails a week. You know what I mean? So that's another pro too, is I've had my highest earning months because of white labeling.
So we're going to wrap this up, and you kind of already touched on some of this stuff, but if somebody wants to pursue white labeling, where do you recommend that they start?
Yeah, so if you've got a little experience, you feel confident that you can either execute these projects, which again, they're not any more complex than anything we teach in Inbox Academy. So if you're a student, like you should have the confidence to go after this. But if you have the confidence to do this and the support behind you to tackle each project that comes your way, then I would say you want to kind of how you go into client acquisition, you're looking for the right fit of a company for you. You want to start looking for marketing agencies, right? That has been, I feel like, the best out of all the companies that I work with, marketing agencies. Go to their website, right? See, do they have an email marketer or an email strategist listed? Because a lot of times they'll have like their team members, like SEO and this and that. So to be able to come to those agencies and say like, hey, I noticed you do this and that you have a gap here, and remind them of the ROI and how every business is always going to need email, and offer yourself as someone that could be a part of the team and help them scale their business. So again, when we pitch to clients, we are always showing them like what we can do for them, right? How it's a win for them. Same when you pitch to an agency that you want to white label for, you are showing them how you can help their business grow by having you on their team. I would just say, like, simple Google, LinkedIn, check out companies you love, maybe try to focus on those marketing agencies and see if you can be that missing piece for them.
Such great advice. Okay, so hopefully this helped take some of the mystery out of white labeling for you. If you've been considering this, hopefully this made it feel a little bit more doable. Definitely go pursue it because it's such a great opportunity. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you want some deeper support around, learning these skills that can get you to that level to be a part of a white labeling situation, we share a lot more tips and support inside of our email list. So definitely go hop on our email list. You'll find that link below in the notes. Bye, guys.